I am back after a very long time. I took a bit of a break to do my degree. I graduated. I now have a degree in professional writing and publishing and creative writing, so I've got a double degree. I have my beautiful boy Griffin and my other baby Fenrir, and I'm a mum. So a fair bit has changed, including kind of what I want to do with this channel, surprisingly. I'm still going to occasionally do gaming videos and things like that, but mainly thanks to my degree, I think I'll be able to actually give fairly good analysis and reviews of books now as well. So that's going to be kind of what I'm doing with my channel, and I thought for my first video a good merge of the two would be if I reviewed this, which I picked up at Kmart today, which is the first 3 Five Nights at Freddy's books. I got the Silver Eyes, the Twisted Ones, and the Fourth Closet. This is my first video of this kind on this channel. I love this series, like most people my age. Five Nights at Freddy's came out in 2014, 2015 I believe. Not sure when exactly, I'll have it somewhere when the correct date is. But it was my second year out, so it would have been 2015. My second year out of high school, my first time kind of being an adult. It gave me something to look forward to every couple of years because things weren't exactly very easy. I'd obviously watch it. I played the first one on this channel. I'm pretty sure I only left one of the videos up because I wasn't very good at it. So yeah, that can be, I'll put it in the comments section I suppose. This is mine, not yours. I'm tired. I really didn't sleep last night. So there's that. I have my notes. Where am I up to? I've read 3 chapters. That's 103 pages, and according to Goodreads, 31% through it. And I forgot about this. 4.1 stars on Goodreads. 5 Nights at Freddy's. Silver Eye. 4.1 stars. Alright. Alright. You getting a vibe from my thoughts are so far? Alright, I've plotted this out, which is why I have my notes. I've got my little script. And I'm too tired to actually remember it, so I'm going to pretend that I'm saying this off the bat. I've got notes. I had like 2 hours of sleep last night. Stop licking her hands. She puts those in her mouth. I have switched to my phone because my camera keeps overheating, so we'll see how that goes. As we go through, I'm going to give a bit of an overview of what's going on and my thoughts throughout. I'm going to cut to me reading the book occasionally. She's not even unhappy, she's just making noise. I'm going to cut to me reading the book occasionally to kind of highlight my thoughts, give reasoning behind them, hopefully explain a bit about why I'm thinking these things. The book starts with a writing technique that I think works really well because of what this book is, and because we are all going into this book, let's be honest, with a bit of an understanding of what the universe is already of Five Nights at Freddy's from the game. And from YouTubers like MatPat, who go on the deep dives and give us a bit of an understanding about the generalization of the universe. It has a flash forward sequence in the first thing. It goes from can I help you? We spend the first page and a half bloody, scared and hiding, and we all know it's an animatronic, like we all know that, and they even describe it. They say, eyes closed, she could still see the way he looked at her, see the matted fur and the exposed metal beneath synthetic flesh. Like, that is an animatronic. That is an animatronic. And just as Charlie is about to get hurt, she caught herself and looked up just in time to see the downward swing of the hook. Welcome to Hurricane Utah. It's a flash sequence. It
is done so that we are immediately drawn into the book, and then it goes to where the story actually starts, which I think works in only because we know what's happening in the book already, and we are getting put in the beginning of the story after to make sure we understand why this character Charlie is where she is, and we do get a bit of understanding of that. We go from being in the car, going to the restaurant to meet her friends, being like, oh wait, no, we're too early. I'm gonna go back to my childhood house to waste some time before I have to go meet John, Jessica, and Carlton. And when we're at the house, I really do enjoy the house scene. It's very ominous and foreboding. There is one line that perfectly depicts how we should feel in this scene. There was a dark stain in the wooden floorboards near the center of the room. She doesn't mention anything beyond it. She just steps around it quickly and quietly and just goes to where she wants to go, which is her old bedroom. There's just a brief mention. We know that something went down in this house. We don't know what it is, but we know something happened. She has all these romanticized memories, but through them, and as she's talking and as the explanations are going on, we can see that something is not quite right. It's almost haunting. This is a room she once felt very comfortable in. These were animatronics that gave her comfort and joy, and she felt pride in them, but now she's just completely uneasy, does not want to be in this room anymore. She was being so careful to not touch anything as she left because she didn't want to set anything off. She does, and it's almost like this thing comes at her. She leaves scared in a hurry and goes to her car and then goes to the restaurant where she meets up with her friends. You find out that these children, there's numerous references from here on out that they are not yet 18. They are still teenagers, and I was really shocked. I was like, these people are traversing cross country to come back to this town where someone went missing or died. We don't know really what happened yet. We know because of the game, but these kids don't know. These parents don't know what happened to Michael, and they're like,
oh yeah, go back to this town that we all fled in terror.
I assumed they were adults, and now we know that they're 16, 17. They'll catch up a little, and then we find out that they built over Freddy Fazbear's. It might have been a mall, they don't really say what it is. They bulldozed it and built over it. So they agree to go and see what happened. What does it look like? What's there now? So they're in the place now. They climb in through the building, through a window. They have to go up a hill and they climb down. It's a little bit confusing how it's described, in my opinion. But they get into the building, and then they walk around, and they end up hiding because they see these flashlight bobbing along, and in my mind immediately went to an animatronics. They duck into this place to hide, and then they find Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. So we find out that they didn't actually bulldoze the place, they just built around it and almost entombed it so that no one could get in again. And they find a door that's almost rusted closed, so they yank on it when the security guard is gone and when they're no longer in fear of being found. But before they do that, they have this really weird scene. Despite the fact that they're hiding, they Charlie smells and goes, huh, that smells really nice. And I'm and they her and Carlton have this conversation about what shampoo he's using. I'm like, what? You're hiding from a security guard. And she almost tries to justify it to herself.
Oh, I'm not scared because what's the worst you're gonna do, yell at us? And
if I was, even now honestly, if I was in somewhere I shouldn't be and I knew I shouldn't be there, and it was made very clear that you shouldn't be there because of the fact they had to break in, I wouldn't be old chill about it. I would be shitting bricks even as an adult. I don't want to get yelled at. I don't want to go to jail because that's the other reality. You might get the cops called on you. They look around, they reminisce, they leave. John goes with Carlton to Carlton's house, and Jessica and Charlie go to the motel, not a hotel, a motel that Jessica booked. I get irritated with that because later on they change it to hotel. Motel and hotel are two very different things, and it bothers me. Just another inconsistency. The next morning they're woken up by the next members of the Scooby Gang, Marla and Jason. They come, they're half siblings, which is mentioned a number of times in the 3 chapters that I've read. They play a little bit heavy on the arguing siblings trope. So they all go to the restaurant, they meet the last little member of the gang, what's his name? Lamar, who is in college already. He's early acceptance to somewhere, I can't remember what it is, I don't know American universities. colleges, I don't know what they call them. They talk, they discuss spirits, why they were left Hurricane, other than Carlton, who's the only one to stay out of the entire group. He's the only one to have remained there other than Michael's parents. And then I think it was John reveals that they went to Freddy's. And everyone's like, oh my god, we should totally do that after the ceremony. So they're like, yeah, let's do that. And they go to the ceremony. Nothing really happens. There's kind of like just talks about who Michael was. They kind of leave because Charlie gets overwhelmed and she's like, I need to leave, so everyone leaves. She decides she needs a break before they go to Freddy's. They say they're going to meet there at sundown. So she goes back to her house, but like while she's walking there, or she's walking to her car, sorry, she notices Jason is following her, so he comes along. And when we're there, we have like a little wandering around thing around the front yard. We kind of like see who they used to be, like they used to be friends. There was like it was alluded to earlier on that they almost kissed, and then John brings it up like, do you remember this tree? And then we have this little flashback scene where Charlie remembers they almost kissed, and it was like really weird and awkward to read through, so I'm not going to read through it. I'm just going to put it here because I don't want to do that again. It was really awkward. She can see herself in the camera and it's really amusing her, so she's just doing this now. We go from, oh, do you remember that time you almost kissed? Ha ha ha, you almost broke my nose. To, by the way, I saw the kidnapper. Just so quickly, seamless, just like immediate, one step to the other. Kissing, kidnapper. It was just so sudden. Yeah, I saw the kidnapper when Michael was taken. Ha ha ha. And then they don't go, oh my god, let's go to the cops. Oh my god, why didn't you tell anyone in the past 10 years? Charlie just goes, we should meet everyone at Freddy's. And then they just kind of have a race back to the car. And that's the end of the chapter. So far, it's just a lot of whiplash. There are a lot of grammar, editing mistakes, inconsistencies. The writing is chunky, and I'm not going to say subpar, but it's just, there are a lot of things that I wouldn't do in it, and things that I would edit out, personally, as an editor. I'm going to go read a little bit more. Probably see you in the next 2 days or so. Yeah. Okay, this is gonna be a quick go over because in the past, like, I swear 100 pages, so now it's chapter 6, nothing happened. It feels like, okay, I know things happened, and some one actual plot advance happened in the entirety of the past 100 pages. So let's get into it. There's gonna be a quick recap because I have doctor's appointments today, and this book is irking me. Okay, so it starts with John and Charlie meeting everyone outside the building. They think they see a guard. He looks at them with the flashlight, apparently, like Jason is convinced. Now Charlie's feeling really odd around John. She refers to it being uncomfortably aware. I think it's really obvious that they're trying to put in a romance little subplot there. It feels awkward and incredibly forced though. So the Scooby Gang are mucking around, because that's what I've been calling them in my head and my notes. The Scooby Gang are mucking around with controls, and they found, like, with security cameras, like underneath, in my brain it's kind of like underneath one of the stages, like go downstairs and there's like a little room with cameras and buttons and things. So they're mucking around with that, figuring out how to use Bonnie and Chica, but they can't figure out how to move Freddy. 1 second. Which in my opinion is creepy. They can't move one of the animatronics. They all split off. Marla, Jessica, Carlton and Lamar are off exploring together. Charlie and John are playing hide and seek, and Jason is left alone. This kid is, like, this is my thoughts. This is my thoughts as I was going through it. This kid is so gonna die based on the cliche and the scenes that are being depicted. Looking around for a switch to turn on the arcade because he's bored, he wants to play video games, because as we see from his character, so far that's the only thing he does is play video games. Jason picks up a photo of Bonnie off the wall. In the photo, Bonnie's hugging a child. They're facing towards each other. He gets startled to look away from the photo when John comes in looking for Charlie, and then he runs out being all cool, like, oh, I wasn't really like thinking this is so fun. It's like, oh. Then when Jason looks back at the photo, the child is looking away from Bonnie. The photo has moved. Clearly this freaks Jason out. He realizes just how quiet it is, and he's completely alone, and he starts looking for everyone else. And this in my mind is like, yep, he's definitely gonna fucking die. We then cut to Marla, what are their names? Marla, Jessica, Luan, and Carlton, who have found another box of, like another security box, because they're still trying to figure out how to control Freddy. So like, there must be another one. So they find one, and they're mucking around with the lights and they're switching through the cameras, and like they figured out how to turn the lights on, and now they're figuring out the music. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they're messing with the speakers, and as Jessica's messing with it, she pauses and then starts messing with it again. They're like, what are you doing? What's going on? And she's like, I'm hearing my voice. I'm hearing me singing in the, through the speakers. And they're like, no, you're not. No, you're not. And then they start listening, and everyone but Lamar is like, oh my god, yeah, no, this is you. We're hearing you. And they spot a figure in the dark, and they think it's Charlie, and the point of view changes to Charlie's. So it's like really quick switching around point of views. They're playing hide and seek still. Charlie thinks John might be cheating. She hides behind a curtain because she sees him. And when Charlie's eyes adjust to the dark, she sees the thing from her father's workshop that always terrified her. She sees the hook, which we now know be Foxy if we know anything about the universe. And we are showing her getting hurt by the hook. And John catches her as she falls through the curtains. Marla comes screaming in, apologising because she pushed one of the buttons, and it made Foxy's hook drop, so it scratched her, like cut her arm. Because Charlie's hurt, they all leave. I gotta admit, I was really surprised that they actually got out, and by this stage it was starting to really reminisce like the opening scene of Scream, where like they open the cupboard, they close the cupboard, they open the fridge, they close the fridge, and every single time you expect Ghostface to be there, but he never is, and it just starts getting really repetitive and boring. Charlie is taken to the drugstore by Marla to get bandages and everything because she's bleeding from an old bloody hook that's been in this restaurant for the past 10 years unattended to. She should go to the hospital and get a tetanus shot, but whatever. And then they get so close to passing the Bechdel test. They get so close. I'm not even gonna read it out. They actually start talking, like real talking about Marla's family and how her mum and stepdad might be getting a divorce and how it's going to affect Jason and like how she's concerned about him, blah blah blah. And then it goes, hey, so how are you and John doing? And it's just so disappointing because they had a real moment there for half a second. They had real female characters that weren't obsessed with boys. They get back to the motel, John is there, he's worried about Charlie and asks to sleep on the floor because she's freaked out still. Charlie agrees, apparently she never would have otherwise. The next morning, Charlie wakes up first and leaves for a walk, and like the freaking stalker that John is, he follows her. It's like the third time he has followed her without her knowing until she's like, you know, halfway there, halfway to the car, halfway to whatever she's going. John is there. We find out that Freddy's wasn't the first restaurant, that a bunny and a bear was at the first, and that Charlie had a sibling, a twin brother. I think it was a twin brother. I can't remember. John tries to help her remember, but so they can find the place, but obviously since she was 2, she only remembers like little tiny bits. Somehow she remembers her parents singing "We're Back in Harmony" every time they come back from a road trip, and from that they just assume that it is a they're referring to a nearby town called New Harmony, and off they go. As cliche as everything else in this book, the second they start to give up on finding it because it is a random town with there's not even on any maps, Charlie recognizes something, and that leads them to the old restaurant, which John finds a plaque or something on the ground, I suppose, that is called, I feel like it was like Fazbear's Family Pizza or something, I can't remember. But they both go exploring through the building that they find. John goes off by himself because he's like filled with this childish curiosity that Charlie hasn't seen in years. And Charlie has this memory, and it's one of the very few instances in this lot that I've read the past 100 pages where something is actually shown to us and not told to us, and I actually liked that a little bit. It's a memory of her brother and her hiding in, I believe, a closet or something, and this brownish, yellowish rabbit like finds them, and they're terrified, and her brother Sammy starts crying, and she like tells him off for crying because they're not supposed to be crying, they're supposed to be like hiding. And there's this bit of a scuffle of them like trying to hold on to each other, but the rabbit, sorry, takes Sammy. And then there's this huge chaos that goes on in the restaurant, and the restaurant is basically immediately closed. And then as she tells John about this in a way that I found is often done in this book when Charlie is really telling something, we just assume that he has the same information. They just say, and that's what happened, and we're basically just left to assume that within the space of no gaps, no lines, just, and that's what happened after a memory. When John finds her, he now knows everything. It's always John as well. I don't know. John then goes, oh my god, the suit that took Michael was also yellowish brown, but it was a rabbit, it was a bear. Charlie realizes that the yellow mascot connects all of the child disappearances, because coincidences don't happen in books, I guess. Yeah, and then the rest of the chapter is basically a bunch of exposition where we are told things. It is like a list, it is emotionless, it is not fantastic writing. As they're leaving, Charlie picks something up. We aren't aware what it is until the next page, basically. And and then it's another instance of an actual memory being shown to us. It's another instance of a memory being shown to us rather than told to us, because Charlie's asleep, which is one of the few times that we actually get shown things, is when it's actually happening in her head. And it's of her father telling them what a spring trap contraption is. He has one of the little tiny gears in it. He shows them how they work and warns them to never ever touch one because they are incredibly dangerous. And that is the end of the next 100 pages. More happened this time. It starts with John and Charlie. Holy shit, these two are just alone. So much. There are better ways to develop a romance. This is feeling like a weird mix of like forced proximity and second chance romance tropes. They come back to the motel and find a note from Marley that they're meeting for dinner, and then they're going to go you know where. At the restaurant, Charlie tells John he doesn't want anyone to know about Fredbear's. And it has a bit of filler. They go to Freddy's where there's a guard there, and he's actually like blocking off the entrance. He's all creepy and he's waiting, and he knows that like Jason was right. He saw them the first time as well, and here he is. They convince the guard to go into Freddy's with them, and like you know, they kind of like sweet talk him, go like, oh, you know, I bet you like want to know what's in there, like come on, you know this place better than us, like for sure, like why don't you show us around? And like somehow he's like, yep, cool, let's go. Hello. That was rude. They enter the pizzeria again and split off. Despite how freaked out he was, Jason goes to the arcade by himself, Carlton goes to the kitchen, and everyone else goes to the control room. Somehow, calling it beginner's luck, Dave manages to move the animatronics around as he wants, can get the speakers going, get the lights going, everything's working as he wants it to. And then we cut to Carlton. Despite the page earlier, them saying he was going to the kitchens, he's with Jason in the arcade. He actually gets to the arcade before Jason gets there, and then Jason wanders off looking for more of the pages that he found where Bonnie was moving in the last one that he took. Jason goes back looking at the drawings. He finds 3 that are together, pulls out the and he sees like vaguely move in the corner of his eye. He pulls out the drawing that he took the day before and puts it up with like tacks it back up. and like he waits. And similarly to before in my last little like edition of this review, as he's about to walk away and give up, he sees it move again, like starts really concentrating on it, and he sees Bonnie running across the first page. He sees Bonnie snatch the child, and on the last page the child is screaming. Jason has some kind of vision, I suppose. I don't really know what it is. He's like having these visions, I suppose, where like the pages start like falling all around him. They're like grabbing him, they're holding him down, blood starts like coming out of the pages. It's quite the vivid imagery, honestly. But then Marla like shakes him out of it and goes like, what the hell are you doing? He like kind of like stammers out what's going on, and it's a completely out of character moment for what we've developed from Marla and the way that she sees Jason. She tells him that, like, she says, you embarrass me. Like, that is so not what she would say in any circumstances based on what we have like established from her character towards Jason so far. But back to the animatronics. Jessica, Carlton and Dave go to the stage and leave Lamar in the control room. Bonnie starts going completely out of control, rips his leg from the bolts that he has in the floor, gets his hand off the guitar, and like Carlton jumps on the stage trying to find like a manual off switch and gets flung from the stage and like lands and somehow is completely fine, just like is a little bit out of breath. That's all. Like he gets hit by this fucking robot, flung across the room, and he's fine. A little weird. Lamar's trying to turn Bonnie off from the control panel, but Charlie's with him, and she tries as well, and they realise that the controls just aren't doing anything, nothing's working, so they leave the control room and try and go out to the stage to help them out there. So they kind of just stand there going, ah, a little bit. Now all the animatronics are out of control. They're moving hectically, they're speeding up, they're moving like really rapidly, frantically. Charlie and John go somewhere. There's not actually said where they go, but they go somewhere. Lamar, Jason and Marla go searching for Dave because they realise he's not there anymore. And everyone else goes to the control room to try and figure this out from there again. Then we cut to Dave, and it is extremely obvious. This is a man on a mission. He is doing something. It is not good for anyone else that is in that bloody pizzeria. He has a keychain to the main office where Charlie tried to get into in the first couple chapters but couldn't get into. Had this memory of her dad in there and was like, I want to go in there, and like couldn't go in there, but he can get in there. And he like opens a cupboard that is in... You happy? He opens a cupboard that is in the room and like just starts like stroking this yellow rabbit suit. This is so heavy-handed. We go back to the Scooby Gang, and Jason screams because he thinks he saw Bonnie, and they decide to find John and Charlie and get the fuck out. As they're searching, Jason sees Bonnie again. And I'm not gonna say this unbelievable because like I'm not gonna say his actions are unbelievable because these guys are being kind of assholes and like they're not believing him, they're dismissing him, they're treating him like a child. He is a child, to be clear, but like they're treating him like he's 20 years younger than them, not 9. And so he just wanders off by himself. He decides to go play Alice in Wonderland, and he chases after Bonnie. He ends up in Pirate Cove, and the curtains start like peeling back, and like for a second there's this like vivid imagery in my head at least. There's gonna be like Foxy like rah, but instead it is Carlton. They go to leave, but a yellow rabbit appears behind Carlton, grabs him, puts his paw over his face and like drags him back, and Jason just starts screaming as you would. And then Charlie and John show up, they drag him out, he's screaming the whole way. Bonnie took Carlton, the rabbit took Carlton, and no one's listening to him until they're outside and they're like, hey, where the fuck's Carlton? They think that Carlton is just lost in the restaurant. They don't think that he's been taken, they don't think anything else. They just like, oh, he must have gotten lost, let's go get help.
Hey, let's do get help.
What?
Get help.
No.
Come on, you love it.
I hate it.
It's great, it works every time.
It's humiliating.
Do you have a better plan?
No.
We're doing it.
We are not doing get help.
At least they're somewhat smart and they go and get help.
Get help! Please! My brother's dying! Get help! Help him!
They find a cop who thinks it's a prank, but goes back with them to the mall, I think just like to prove to them nothing's really wrong. They get to the door that goes into Freddy's, and it is like just completely locked, sealed, with rusty chains like it had been there for years. Jason tells the cop what he's seen. The cop assumes that these older teens have like coerced this poor young kid into like lying for the prank, and that like, you know, he gets really angry, especially when like Jason like buckles down like, no, this is what happened, I'm not lying, like this is what happened, why is no one believing me, basically. Officer Dunn, the cop, says that it's time for them to go home. They say that they're gonna go back in anyway, like doesn't matter what they say, what the cop says, they're gonna find a way back in and they're gonna look for their friend. Dunn goes, alright, fine, I'll help, tell me again what happened. And they get as far as saying, our friend Carlton Burke, and then he goes, wait, what? Okay, it's time to go right now, we're going outside, and like gets his little baton out and like kind of like threatens them out the door. But as soon as they're outside, he gets on his little walkie and goes like, get me Chief Burke, basically. Yeah, Carlton's dad, he's a cop, he's the chief. And he comes, they kind of like just talk about it, like what the hell is going on. And then Chief Burke comes and is like, hey guys, it's a prank, soz. It's a new day, we're not gonna address it. So after finding out that Carlton often pulls pranks like these, they all follow Clay, his Carlton's father, the police chief, back to his house. They ponder like, how is this a prank? Like, why would he do something like this? Can this really be a prank? And ultimately they decide it has to be a prank. Like, what else could have happened? Like, why would he do this? Clay explains that Carlton has changed since everyone left Hurricane, that he has often pulled pranks like this that sometimes comes off as cruel. He cites one prank that because they took Carlton to a different high school. He's no longer in the high school in their town. He's in a different high school, and for a full month convinced everyone at the school that he had a twin brother, to the point that one of his classmates, I think they said, what's her name? They don't say her name, but his twin brother, Sean, had a girlfriend who was actually like fully like into him. Like, he had a whole other personality, and this girl obviously thought this relationship was real. He's pulled some quite cruel pranks in the past, so it's not out of character for him to do slightly cruel things. Because it's like midnight at this point, Clay invites the girls to stay the night in one of their spare rooms. Charlie gets her own room because she's the main character, I suppose. And then there are 4 fully italicized dream secret pages. And it hurt my eyes to read. It was not an easy thing to read. Not because of the content, it was actually quite interesting. It was very much showing rather than telling. But it was just difficult to read because it was entirely in italics and it actually hurt. It was not good for someone who suffers from optical migraines, let's put it that way. In the nightmare, Charlie dreams about Foxy. Foxy's like stalking the house, I suppose, almost. And like as Foxy gets close, she can't scream and she like runs up the stairs, finds her dad, and then Foxy gets this look on his face as he's like following up, and Foxy freezes and almost looks like her father is the nightmare. When she wakes up, Charlie has quite a like concerned feeling about her father and what he was really like, and like why she would dream of him in this manner. So she goes outside for air to calm down, and guess what happens? John follows. She feels like the dream is more like a memory than a dream, and it ultimately ends in her going, what did you think about my dad? And people in the town thought that he was the kidnapper, and that is why he committed suicide. Thank you so much for any form of warning that there were suicidal themes in this book, by the way. That really like threw me off. It was really uncomfortable to read. But yeah, he committed suicide,
and everyone thought it was just out of guilt for taking all of those kids. She decides she wants to go back to her house, and they go back to bed. The next morning is the new chapter. They are discussing the prank again over Clay's pancakes, and ultimately he's like, yep, he's still not home, but like, you know, he'll be home any minute now. Like, he's gonna be home. Like, it's just a prank. He does this all the time. Carlton's mum, Betty, comes downstairs and is livid that her husband left their son in this place overnight. Apparently she's the only adult with any sense of brains or decency, because she basically amounts to like, our son was devastated after, I'll put the exact quote here, but basically their son was devastated after Michael's disappearance, and there is no way, like, no matter how much of a future felon he is, there is no way that he would desecrate Michael's memory by making a joke out of Freddy's, is what she basically says, and demands that he go back and get her son immediately. So he sends Officer Dunn, the young police officer they originally go to Freddy's with. He sends Officer Dunn back to Freddy's to figure it out. He goes by himself. He ultimately manages to get into the building because the chains are now loose. The door is askew. He goes in. He's like a bit uncomfortable because like, this is different, this isn't right. He goes back to the office where Dave had the costume, and it's just slumped in the corner, and as he goes to, like, I don't remember if he goes to touch it or like whatever, but it lunges at him. It breaks his arm and then stabs him in the chest, and the last thing that Officer Dunn sees are the eyes staring into him. That's it. No more Officer Dunn. We go back to Charlie and John, who are back at the old house. They see the dark stain on the ground, and they make a point of it, and now I realise that is where her father committed suicide. Charlie leaves John in her room to play with Stanley the unicorn, and goes to her father's room that is like next door to her room, and goes to the bookcase, gets a family photo album, and then walks back in and looks over it with John. She finally like realizes, oh my god, my brother Stanley wasn't just a victim of my imagination. He was real. He was taken. Like, I wasn't imagining it just by being so young. Seeking more information, they go to Hurricane's library and end up looking through the like old newspaper reels that they have. And they, while she's trying to remember, she ends up remembering that the day her brother went missing, the day her brother was taken by a man in a yellow rabbit suit. It was Halloween because her mother was dressed in a princess costume. There's a little bit of an inconsistency there where like it starts off with like they were wide awake in this closet, and then like in the same breath it's basically saying that they were falling asleep, like, and then as the mum left they fell asleep. That's how she remembers that it was like Halloween. So they start looking at reels from November 1st and find a photo and find an article of toddler taken, basically is the title. And then they come across a photo, again another photo, on that thing saying like labeling these two people as co-founders, like co-owners, sorry, of Fazbear's Family Diner, I guess the title, I can never remember the title of this place. And that, you know, there's Charlie's dad in his little bunny, I keep saying bunny. There's Charlie's dad in his yellow bear costume, and there, with his arms slung around him, is Dave. Well, it doesn't say Dave, but it's so obviously Dave. It is so obviously Dave in his little yellow rabbit suit. And then just as they're like about to like address this, like, oh my god, that is, Marla bursts in, and Jason's gone. Jason has vanished. He had been talking about how it was so wrong they were just sitting around waiting, how they should go back to Freddy's. Marla thought he just went to another room, but he is gone. They know exactly where he is, so they run out of the library back to Freddy's. We start with Carlton, who is restrained in an animatronic body.
in some rooms. Clearly he's still at Freddy's, obviously. And then a rabbit appears as he's struggling to try and get free, takes off his head, and it's Dave! Wow! Shocker! Dave's entire demeanor changes, but despite that, Carlton has no fear and says what we're all thinking. What kind of a name for a serial killer is Dave? When I tell you I snorted, I was not expecting that at all. Made me laugh a little bit. I was pretty happy with the fact that I got to laugh in this book, or feel any sort of joy. Dave gives what he describes as a friendly warning against moving to Carlton, and then we find out Carlton is in a springlock suit, which you might remember. Can I help you? Do not knock my camera over. Do not knock my. Which you might remember from earlier was one of the things that Charlie's father created and warned her against ever touching because of how dangerous it was. And this was one of the first springlock suits that Henry, Charlie's father, ever created. Dave gives this long description of what will happen if you do move and the spring locks snap. And then he takes off his shirt and you can see all down him, all on his neck are these scars. I found the description incredibly awkward and just a little bit cringy to read. It was obviously going for like this really intense, scary moment, and it fell really flat. I was just kind of like, when is this gonna end? We get it. You die. Can you not go into this, oh, this happened and you can feel every last breath, because it's just really cringy. We then flash to the Scooby Gang. They are now at Freddy's, and the door to Freddy's has been completely welded shut. What is happening and why am I not allowed to record this video? But luckily Jason wasn't able to get inside, and they follow his footsteps to a little, like, I don't know what they're called, like vent thing. None of them are small enough to fit through, and like seemingly every single plot point in this story, Charlie's memory comes into play, and she remembers that there's a skylight at the roof of Freddy's, and they just assume that there is a crawl space between the roof of the mall and the roof of Freddy's. It's big enough for them to get through, and then they can eventually find the skylight and get into Freddy's. As they're searching for a way to get into the roof, to look for the crawl space, look for the skylight, John and Charlie are being incredibly flirty and inappropriate given how the fact that they spit it out. Why are my dogs eating plastic? Considering we now know who Dave is and the fact that he's killed who knows how many people, we just know children. We know Carlton has been taken, Jason's is in the fucking building, but still, like, they're in danger. And these two children are flirting. Yep, and so they get inside, they fall through the skylight almost. They're in Freddy's, they are trapped. They realise they cannot get back up the skylight. There is no way out. The door is welded shut. Skylight's inaccessible. Nothing. They got no way out now. They're trapped. I don't actually think they realise that, but like my brain was like, oh, okay, finally, they're trapped. They can't leave now. Thank God, it's finally happened. You're not getting the toy. And like in every bad horror movie, the teens split up. At least they have walkie-talkies from Carlton's house. That is, and at least they can communicate in some form. There are 2 walkie-talkies, so 1 per group. Lamar and Marla go off in one way. Bless you. Jessica, John, and Charlie go off another way. There's a lot of splitting up and getting back together, and then like lots and lots of flashes between different characters in the next 2 chapters or so. So what I've done is I've actually gone through and I've rewritten my script, because I realised how often I was saying meanwhile and now we flash to and da 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 da. I've rewritten my script. So now I'm following one character along until they meet the next character, and then we're going to go through what that character was going through until that moment. So we're going to start with Charlie, because she's the main character and she has the most things that are done, I suppose. So with Jessica and John wandering until they get a warning over their walkie-talkie from Marla and Lamar that Dave, the security guard, is closing in on them, so they go and hide under the stage's control room.
She leaves after a little bit when she deems it's safe, and behind her the control room door jams shut, so Jessica and John are stuck in there now. She quickly runs into Bonnie, runs around for a little while, ends up in the bathroom, gets trapped in the bathroom, gets out of the bathroom, and then she goes into this storage area thing where Carlton is. And now we go to Carlton. And while Jessica, John, and Charlie are hiding in the control room, Carlton can hear the commotion going on outside and like slowly edges his way, very slowly, given that he might die if he makes the wrong move, towards the side of a camera, hoping that his friends will see him. As he's moving, as he is in the side of this camera, he looks off to the side and makes eye contact with this yellow bear, which we might remember now is the colour of the suit that Henry, Charlie's father, would always wear. And he makes eye contact with this bear, there's like a glint on his eye, and he just like starts staring really heavily in it, and he starts hearing this voice in his head, and it's Michael's. And there's a quote, it tells him things that he dreaded, things that someone needed to hear. And then after a little while, Charlie finds him. She reveals that she's one of the only people that will be able to get him out of the suit alive. This is despite her father warning her of ever touching a spring lock, ever, because of how dangerous they are. And also, in the beginning of the book, them saying that she sucked at shop class, took one and never again because she sucked at it. But somehow she's one of the few people that could ever free Carlton from this very unique system that is extremely dangerous. That she has no talent similar to her father's for, which is stated. Regardless of that, Carlton is free, he's fine, whatever. And it is finally definitively stated out loud, no little little snippets of it, just like, oh, it might be. Dave is the person who killed all of those children. It is stated out loud for the audience to have more than just heavy-handed hinting. It's actually stated out loud for us to know. I was getting frustrated by the fact they weren't just saying it, despite saying it without saying it. It was annoying. New revelation though is that when Dave, the security guard, killed all those children, he stuffed them into suits, and Carlton is now claiming that those children are still there in those suits, and in the yellow bear costume is Michael. Dave comes back, Charlie knocks him out with a pipe, and they run. And then they run into... where is it? Yeah, they run in the kitchens, they hide in the kitchens, they run into Chica, and now they're running for Chica. It's a whole lot of running. Hello, Fenrir. You're not Fenrir. Hello, Griffin. Now we're going all the way back to when Charlie left John and Jessica. They try to go after her, but the door's locked. Marla's screaming at them not to move because there's something banging on the outside of the thing. One of the animatronics is free again, and she's banging. We don't know we don't know who it is. We don't find out who it is, but they're banging on the door. They ended up breaking the lock, so unjamming the thing that was jammed. And then when they're certain that the animatronic has gone away, they start taking turns kicking at the door, trying to get free of the control room. And eventually they do. Almost as soon as they do, Charlie and Carlton run towards them, screaming to move, to go, like, come with us, run away from the fucking yellow animatronic that's chasing us, this giant bird thing. They make it to an old office, hunker down, and over the radio we hear from Marla that Jason has been taken. There is no reaction to the fact that Carlton has now been found, the person who was actually missing, but Jason has been taken by Foxy, and Charlie promises that they will find him. Charlie and Jessica go off to explore the skylight, don't even make it down the hall before they're back. It's literally like one paragraph to the next, they're back. And then they decide to go back to where Dave is knocked out because he knows this place. He's probably the one that welded it shut. He should know how to get in and out. Carlton is now tired, he's throwing up, he is still not admitting to the fact that he has a concussion, which he clearly has. And they kind of just, yeah, they make their way back to Dave. Luckily he's not dead, that was a thought for a little bit. They search for something to tie up Dave with, but before they do, some things happen. Carlton discovers that the yellow bear costume is gone, and he freaks out because, you know, Michael's gone now. They find Officer Dunn's body and rather coolly dismisses it, and then they find extension cords and tie up
Dave, despite the weird flirting thing that John and Charlie are doing while they're tying up a literal murderer. Dave wakes up and is now described as a blank canvas, isn't he, Ellie? Until Charlie puts on the yellow rabbit hat, helmet, mask, I don't know really what it's called, but it's the yellow rabbit head thing. At which point he reveals that he is aware that the children are stuck in the animatronic suits he stuffed them into. And he is aware that they are roaming around, angry. Charlie asks him, you know, how do we GTFO? And he's like, you can't. And John is fine with that apparently. And he's like, okay, well, you're stuck in here too, so haha. And again, Dave is like, haha, I don't care. I wrote down the actual quote because I cannot be bothered opening that book again. He's fine because when it gets dark, they will awaken, the children's spirits will rise, they will kill you. I'll just walk out in the morning, stepping over your corpses one by one. Pleasant. Dave is certain that unlike the Scooby Gang, he will survive because he is, quote, one of them. John leaves, he just leaves, to go to the control room to hopefully get the walkie-talkie a bit better of a signal, use some of the equipment there to boost the signal and reach outside of where they are. And then next time we see him, is like a couple of pages later, he's with Charlie and Carlton and Jessica, and him and Charlie are kicking over Freddy. And for some reason in my brain, every time I read that or think about it, I'm just picturing that scene in Cars where Lightning McQueen and Mater scare the trucks and then it's kind of and they are doing so to rescue Jason, Lamar, and Marla. You know what that means? We have mentioned all the characters, so we're going to go back, all the way back to the beginning of when they first entered Freddy's that night, when they all split up, like morons. Lamar and Marla go straight to Pirates Cove and they go into the control room there, and there immediately they find Jason huddled in the space beneath the monitors. They see Dave moving towards the others and they warn over the radio and they hide. Marla then warns again that Bonnie is free from the stage, but Charlie's gone before then. And then they warn again when the animatronic is banging on the door, like, don't move, don't drink, leave, like, stay in there. And all of this screaming alerts Foxy to their appearance, and he, like, sticks his head in the door that they left open for some reason. And he looks around and he leaves. It's a trap, which we discover when Jason goes to close the door, gives a little smile because he thinks he did good, and Foxy's hook gets in his leg and drags him out as he screams for his sister. Marla is just kind of sitting there horrified, doesn't really do anything, and Jason is taken. He's gone. We're following Jason now because I hate these people. It was like so many pages between that happening and Jason being seen again. I honestly forgot he existed. When it was mentioned, I was like, oh, right, my favorite character. Hi. Despite the damage done by Foxy hooking his leg and dragging him off, he can still move it pretty easily. And he reveals that he's behind the curtain, and Foxy just really doesn't seem that bothered by him. He's just kind of hanging out on Pirate Cove. But then he hears Marla running towards him. Foxy goes into like attack mode. So he hooks Foxy's leg with a cable, tangles him up in it, and he falls, like kind of tangling himself in the curtain as he does so. So then Jason, Marla, and Lamar run. They go as far as, I think this is the hallway. I think they barely get to the hallway. They run into Freddy, run back to Pirates Cove and hide there. And that's when, as they're about to, you know, what happens in horror books and horror movies, when they're about to die, because Freddy found them, J Squared and C Squared come along, and John and Charlie kick over Freddy, and then they're running again. There's like a really quick scene of Dave getting free, but then
we're back to the Scooby Gang. They see a light and Jessica assumes, like, she screams like, "Oh my god, Dave's free!" Which I don't really get the line of thought there, because A, the animatronics have shown to have, don't throw the toy for him, he'll take it. The animatronics have shown to have lights in their eyes. They didn't see Dave getting out, so she just kind of went, "Ah, Dave." It kind of like reminded me of, like, you know how toddlers and dogs, they assume that you know everything that they know and vice versa. That's kind of the mentality that I was seeing here. Like, we know Dave is free because we saw it happen. So the Scooby Gang must also know that Dave is free. So they turn around to escape Dave, and Chica's there. So John, for some reason, like, just kind of hurls himself at her and then is immediately hurled off into a wall. And Charlie, in some weird Spider-Man moment, kind of like shimmies up the wall, grabs an exposed wire and drops down, electrocuting Chica with it, almost killing herself in the process. And Chica's kind of like just deactivated for a little while. Yeah, she almost died. And then we flash to Dave, who watched all this happen through the window because apparently they were right and that was Dave. Bonnie's there and he's dead. It's just as unceremonious as that. He's dead. The Scooby Gang hears and just kind of dismiss it, like, not important. They literally deem it not important. And they move on. They run into the main party area. Foxy's there. He's on a table. He's like locked onto Jason. Charlie hurls a napkin dispenser at his head. And then Foxy's attention goes whoop to Charlie. Charlie runs off to the arcade, drawing Foxy with it to let everyone else escape. Foxy gets her and like hooks her leg now as well. And she's almost dead. John comes, stomps on Foxy's neck. They run away. They get back to where everyone else is. There's Freddy in front of them, Foxy behind them. And Bonnie and Chica on either side. They're trapped, they're dead, they're good as dead. Like, Marla is about to be Marla Mignon for fucking Freddy Fazbear's. He's about to chomp down on her. They're kind of fucked. But then out of nowhere, like, this is all happening as I'm saying it, by the way. This is how bloody, you know, random everything feels. The yellow bear costume, Michael, appears, and all of the other animatronics kind of back off and go, "Oh yeah, okay, these guys are cool." And like they kind of realize that, oh, they weren't really trying to hurt Jason. They were trying to save him from, you know, as close to adults as their child minds could down. Like, they were close enough to adults to be conceived as a threat, like Dave warned them. And then Clay just busts in. He's got a sledgehammer in one hand, he's knocking down bricks, and then we're gonna go back to when Jason went to the control room, because that's when Clay appeared originally. Way back then, he is at the police station, he discovers that Officer Dunn never came back, and he, instead of going to Freddy's, like a good police chief would do, or order someone else to go there to investigate why one of his officers never came back from this potentially really dangerous situation, he goes down to the basement to look at the Freddy files. It's a really long bit of really obvious exposition where Clay's looking through these files. We discover that Dave's real name is William Afton, that he is the co-founder of Fazbear's Family Diner, that he was the original suspect, that he had this journal when they invaded his place that like went from lunatic ravings to absolute worship of Henry, Charlie's father, to loathing jealousy. So everyone knew he did it, but they didn't have enough proof, so he walked free. And as he's looking at this photo of Henry and William together, Clay is struck by this recognition, like, I've seen this face recently. He goes to where they have all these, like, police background check requests, and there is William's face under a different name. What was it? Dave Miller. And where was he wanting to work? The mall where Freddy Fazbear's once was. Imagine that. Clearly, Clay is a little bit behind what these teenagers have investigated because they're the Scooby Gang.
And I wish you'd have minded your own business. Well, in this case, it's police business.
I didn't give them this name for no reason. And then we are back to, you know, Clay busting down the wall with this sledgehammer. He kind of drops it, runs to Carlton, and Carlton's like, Daddy! Not really, but yeah. As they're about to leave, Dave, William appears, grabs Charlie by the throat. I was wrong, for now. Charlie sets off the spring lock suit in his helmet, and Dave is dead now, I think. So the animatronics move once more. Everyone's kind of like, the animatronics moving, but they just kind of grab Dave Williams' broken body and drag him off to Pirates Cove. They all go back to Clay's house, Carlton's house. They're kind of just like in awe of everything that happened. Clay goes back to Freddy's to retrieve Officer Dunn's body, and he says that now he has enough proof to say what happened 10 years ago to all those children, and hopefully there will be some peace for these kids now. Yeah, that's kind of it. Everyone goes home. That's the end of the story. Yeah. We are now on to the spoiler-free section, because I've gone through the entire plot points of the books. I have said my criticisms in the spoilered part, so if you're interested in watching that after you watch my spoiler-free shit, just to kind of see what I'm talking about, that is the entire video so far. But now we're going to go on to the spoiler-free. Okay, so I'm going to be flashing to things I said during my spoiler section, because I kind of just said things during that I kind of realized aren't spoiler stuff really, so I'm going to move it to here to kind of to back up my points, I suppose. I'm also kind of going flashing because I was figuring out how I was going to be doing this while I was recording. I kind of had a plan of going like each section spoiler, non-spoiler, but then I was kind of like, I'll go through the whole book and then I'll do a non-spoiler section at the end. So that's how we're doing things now. From now on, it will be a lot more concise because I kind of know what I'm doing, sort of. This is my first review though, so things might change, and let me know how you think, and I might change it based on what people think as well. Five Nights at Freddy's, The Silver Eyes. Hello, Griffin. We'll start with the bad, because I feel like we should go on to the next book with good points, and also because there are a lot more bad points than good points. So yeah, I've narrowed my main issues to character, pacing, and editing. The characters came off very 2D. I have one particular rant that I'm gonna go here that kind of backs up my point on that. So off the bat, there was a magic handbag. I've noticed that trope a few people, like if it's more of a feminine character, they have a magic handbag that could have all of your wants and desires all held inside of that tiny little space. Tiny little space has all the things you could ever want to have in a bag. Like it has all these things that could not feasibly fit. It's total Mary Poppins fantasy. We are like girls. We are so often stereotyped into either being some vapid, appearance obsessed, like single-minded person, or a complete pick-me. It's one or the other. Like you're either completely behind the stereotype or you're completely against everything about it to the point where you become a joke in itself. And it's just really annoying because the reality is most girls have a bit of like everywhere in between. We're people. Imagine that. Girls are people. Maybe write them like you would write anyone else. Girls aren't like that. Why do you write girls like this? Why does everyone always write girls like they are like this? No one is really like this. Why? It annoys me so much, Ellie. It does. It shows the gender. We've found out how to squeal now, and I also have a dog leaning on my back. It shows the author's gender. Full stop, it does. There's a damaging perception that we give to young women, especially considering this is a middle grade book, that if you're not like Jessica and you think something's wrong with Jessica for caring about her appearance, that you have to be like Charlie and be like, oh, I'm really insecure about her. It's amazing that she's smart. Like, why just say, oh yeah, she looks really nice and she's smart. Two things that coincide, don't have to be really like, oh my god, about it. they're things that exist. And it's a really damaging mindset to have, to be like, oh my god, she's smart and pretty, this is so shocking and so intimidating. Like, it produces such a mindset that girls have to be against each other that God will not be putting into my child.
Out of all the characters, the only one I didn't hate the entire way through was introduced as a complete brat and didn't even really have any character development. They just kind of changed, and then spent the last quarter of the book crying and whimpering because he's a child in a horror situation, which is the most believable thing out of everything. And like the characters we were supposed to favour, Charlie and John, were really creepy whenever they weren't two-dimensional. Like, I'm talking stalking, inappropriate flirting, making constantly making stupid, unrelatable decisions that, like, I'm not even saying this as an old fart reading a middle grade book. I'm saying this as someone who sent this to my sister as well, like the little sections that I was thinking were stupid and unrelatable. And she's the same age as these characters, and she was like, what the fuck are they doing? Like, please tell me this isn't Five Nights at Freddy's, because she loved the book, the games as well. And she was like, what the hell is this? She was as confused and, like, if not more critical than me. So I feel a bit more justified in my criticisms of these characters, despite the age difference between me and these characters, because people of that age group, literally the same age, she's 18 now, like, she thought that they were even more stupid than I thought they were, because I was kind of putting some things down to their age, and like, no, apparently. But yeah, no, moving on to pacing, that it was just incredibly off. Pacing was so off in horror books, horror movies, horror games. Pacing is arguably one of the key factors. It is in every piece of media, but in horror/thriller in particular, it is so much more important, and it just was off the entire way through. The scenes that did not need to be this long dragged on. I've read online, like, because I went on Goodreads after and I posted my review, and people were saying it was a slog to get through this book. It's not that long of a book. Yes, it's, bless you. Yes, it's like 400 pages, but it's like a size 12 font, double space. Like, it's not that big of a book, realistically. It looks like a big book, but it's not that big of a book. So yeah, some scenes dragged on forever when they didn't need to. Meanwhile, others that actually were important and were kind of enjoyable to read, they were like over like that. Like, the main section of the book, the main conflict, was maybe 2 or 3 chapters, and it was packed filled with like every bit of information that should have been like slowly paced through the book. It should have been maybe like, you know, a rise in the horror and then it plateaus. But no, it was just kind of that was literally how I found the pacing. It was just, bottom line, the way it was paced didn't create a sense of dread. It didn't do what it should do as... Shut up. Didn't do what it should do as a horror/thriller. It didn't do what it should do as a piece of medium that we are aware from the games. It has a very good relationship with horror. It just didn't provide that in the reading medium. Editing. I have a degree in publishing and, in professional publishing and writing and creative writing. I have a double degree. So when I tell you that I don't think this thing was edited more than once, there were so many easy to fix mistakes. It was painful going through it and being like, how did this get published? How did they do this? Get it through editing. And because I assume it was edited at least once, because I don't know any author, because there is an author in this book. Like, I don't know anyone who would put
afford a book for traditional or self-publishing, even hybrid publishing, vanity publishing, whatever you want to go through, I don't know anyone who wouldn't at least do a second round of self-editing before going through sensitivity readers, before going through beta readers. Like, those are musts as well, and I don't think those were done at all. If they were, they might have been done by the target audience of 12 to 16-year-olds who might gloss past these issues because they don't know. It's not their job to edit books made for them because they are too young to do so. And because they don't know the issues with having, you know, characters that are female, that are completely two-dimensional, that are obsessed with looks, that are, say, like, a surprise when a attractive female character is intelligent and wants to pursue a great career, or when, you know, one scene really bothered me that it shouldn't have, honestly. It was at the very end of the book. Mild spoiler, but not really, because it's a horror, you expect someone to get hurt. Carlton has a concussion, one of the characters, and they let him go to sleep. That is like the #1 thing you shouldn't do. And by saying this in a middle grade book, that might not be one of the things in their mind. Like, if someone's friend or someone gets a concussion, they'll be like, I'll sleep it off. They could die. And this character just goes to sleep in front of his police officer father, and no one has an issue with it after he has a clear concussion. He's throwing up, he's tired, like, he's been to the hospital, they say he has a concussion. And, like, they let him sleep. That sort of shit can be really damaging to teach to children because they think that that's okay in the future. And it is deadly. Things like that should have been fixed. Like, I don't care how tired they are, it should have been everyone else taking turns keeping him awake, not going, oh, just sleep it off. A round of editing, a round of sensitivity readers, a round of beta readers. It would have done this book all the good in the world. There wouldn't have been incomplete sentences, there wouldn't have been spelling mistakes, there wouldn't have been inconsistencies out the wazoo. Yeah. I don't know if I'm more annoyed because I've dedicated so long of my life to a career in this, and I've struggled so hard to get my book published, and I still haven't got it published. I'm still editing it for like the 50th time. But it really bothered me that there were so many blatant issues on a cursory read while looking after a newborn, 2 dogs, and cleaning this house. That's why it took me like bloody 2 weeks to read this book, beyond the difficulties in reading it in itself. Like the freaking 4-page italic scene, there was a massive formatting issue because it was difficult to read visually, as well as the other formatting issues that I'm not going to mention. And a bonus issue, if you will. This wasn't an issue I had until I started reading the Goodreads reviews, and everyone was going, like, to any negative review at all. They were saying things like, can't judge this book without reading the others, this is only the first book, and the one that particularly irked me, because this one was really aggressive, people are only looking for issues, even making it up, because it's Five Nights at Freddy's. Because it's Five Nights at Freddy's, these aren't real issues, people are just exacerbating them and making them seem more than they are. Because it's Five Nights at Freddy's, and I can guarantee this book was published. Because it's Five Nights at Freddy's, there is a little thing on top of the cover page that says, from best-selling New York Times authors. If it wasn't Five Nights at Freddy's, this series, these books wouldn't have the games to lean on. And bottom line, if someone read this book and they didn't have the whole loyalty to the franchise, there's no way they would give another book a chance. So you can't just say you can't. One of the other things was, like, it's their first book. It's the author's first book. So it doesn't matter that it's the author's first book. If anyone wrote a book that wasn't about a massive franchise like this, and they didn't have a fan base loyal to this franchise, willing to give 1,000 chances to continued works, they wouldn't go on and read more. They wouldn't waste more money on a series they already didn't enjoy the first one of. So it doesn't matter that it's their first book. That's it. That's done. That's what this industry
is. It sucks. It's incredibly judgmental. But it's people's money, it's people's time. If you watch a movie or play a game and the first one sucked, they're not gonna get a second chance. They're not. Okay, we are now onto the good. I could, by the end of this book, still feel that glimmer of hope that I felt when I opened this up and I was really enjoying the first few pages. If this book went through sensitivity reading, beta reading, and a couple of rounds of professional editing, I think it could be good. I enjoyed the plot. I enjoyed how it went on from and like further developed the lore of the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, and I could see it. I could see what they were going for. I could see what they wanted, but it didn't come across. I'm going to continue on with the next ones, if only because I bought them in a bundle of 3, and I can just see some level of skill in their writing at certain stages of this book. There are scenes, like the last 3 chapters maybe, despite some exposition, where the skill of writing does skyrocket. When there are scenes that the authors care about and invested maybe a little bit more time in, or enjoyed writing a little bit more because there's more in the meat and bones of everything else, it's better. It's somewhat enjoyable to read through. It's not fantastic still, but it's significantly better than the rest of it. So I can see their vision. There is something here. There could be something here. But because of the mistakes and errors and issues that I mentioned, it doesn't quite hit where it should, given the fact that it's a 4-star rating on Goodreads, given the massive fan following, given the fact that there is a movie coming out, given the fact that there is 12 of these books. I realize that they come in like packs, so it's 3 for like the main plot, and then there's like novellas, I think. But beyond that, they also had a graphic novel spin-off, not even spin-off, literal translation from the book to a graphic novel, the same content. So obviously it did well enough for that to happen. I just don't think that if it was not this series, not this story that is from a video game, I don't think it would have done this well, and I don't think it should have done this well. That being said, I'm going to start reading the next 2 now, and you will see me in a little bit.
I like to